Okay. And so this class is all about the architectural set and what the architectural set is all about, and and how we're going to go about making sense of it. And like I was saying, it's broken down into 5 different modules, where the first one is today. We'll try to get through the first 3 today. So module number 1 is just an introduction to the plans, definition, what they are, and component parts of the plan, recognizing symbols and elevation sections, all of the what I call the views. And then, kind of going over scales. And if you don't have a proper measuring tool, how we can look at the plans and get some basic measurements from it and things of that nature. So that's module number 1. Number 2 is breaking down all of the floor plans. So we have a floor plan, we have the roof plan, we have the reflective ceiling plan, and going over all of those plans and identifying the symbols for each of them. And also, so, we may barely just get through this module number 2 tonight. And going over all the symbols for all of the plans and how to apply plan view, section view, detail view, elevation view to each of those plans, and how to make sense of all of that. And of course, looking at the dimensions and the scales and everything. And module number 3, more deeply into understanding the elevations, or what I call the 4 views, and how they relate and how we go to each one based on the trade. So if we're the roofer, what's our section view? If we're the finished trades, which of the views are most important for us, and those kind of things. 4 is reading the details in the notes and making sure you know where to go. And also, I'm going to add to this is understanding the specifications and what part of the specifications are related to the architectural set. And also, I'll have a separate video for that, because that's almost a class in itself, to relate the specifications to everything in the architectural set. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And last module is applying the plans, the architectural set, to estimating and takeoffs. So if I'm the framer, which of the sheets on those plans do I need to look at as far as determining my takeoffs? If I'm the finished trade, if I'm the painter, if I'm the insulation person, if I'm the roofer, which, what do I need to look at? And that's pretty much all of the 5. And again, there'll be detailed explanation videos for each of the modules that you can review constantly. You'll have access to the page and a password. And I would just ask, make sure you don't share any of that information with anyone else. And so let's begin. So now, what are the A plans and how do they fit in the construction drawing? Well, when we have a project, I always want to say a project from the ground up. When we have a project from the ground up, we have the box, which is the structural set. And then once we have the box, we have the architectural set. And then once we finish that, it really depends. If it's from the ground up, we have the civil set, the C plan. So it really depends on what part of the project we're at, which set of plans apply. The architectural set is basic. If you had to think about it anyway, it's everything that goes in and on the building, closes in the building once the box has been constructed. And so what's the box? Basically, the box is the structural set. Structural set is the foundation, columns, beams, headers, and your roof frame. That's the structural set. So that's the box. Simple as that. And shear walls. If you have to think about so that's the box. That's the S plans. And then once we finish the S plans, assuming we already have the civil set. So let's go backwards. So if we have just dirt, we have the civil set. The civil set is all of everything outside the building. So once we walk outside, the civil set is what we see: concrete, asphalt, lights, underground sewers, curbs, gutters, parking lot stripes in the grocery store. That's the civil set. And everything underground. That's the civil set. So the civil set's all finished. Now we want to build the house. Then we start with the box. The box is the structural set. The foundation, beams, headers, columns, roof framing. That's all part of the structural set. So when you look in the architectural set, you'll never find any details about any of the other sets. You won't find details about the structural set. You won't find details about the civil set because we break a project into those various sets. And so again, the A plans, that is everything that goes in and on the building once the building's been constructed. And so we do things like framing, drywall. And see, when we talk about framing, there are two different types of framing. We have structural framing, that's in the S plans. Structural framing is, and remember, you're going to have a quiz on all of this or
Yeah.
more. So take notes for sure. And see, and that's why I give you the recordings too, because
Perfect.
I'm extremely anal, okay? And I'm going to make sure you know the smallest of the details, okay? So make
Absolutely.
sure you take notes and you can listen to this a zillion times if you need to. All right, so I forgot where I was going. Okay, so the A plans again, that's what this class is all about. Is everything that goes in and on the building once the building's been constructed. And so again, framing, we got to make sure we know if we're talking about structural framing, which is the roof, joists, floor joists, columns, beams, headers, or the A plan framing, which is the floor plan, the ceiling, the reflective ceiling plan, the door frames, and all of that. So everything that goes in and on the building once the building's been constructed. So uh, framing that connects all of the columns. So again, that doesn't mean structural framing. Drywall, framing, paint, insulation, um, furniture. Okay, but also in the architectural set, you will have the MEPs, mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. That's also in the set, but of course, those things do different things. Mechanical is everything that heats the building and moves all the liquids in and out the building. That's the mechanical set, basically. The HVAC plan heats and cools the building, circulates the air. And then the plumbing plan. Plumbing and HVAC are both mechanical systems. And so if you think about when you got to make sure when someone says, do you do mechanical or do you do mechanical? So they say, can you estimate the mechanical set? Most people just think HVAC, but no, mechanical is the movement of stuff. When you have a mechanical system, you're controlling the movement of stuff. For HVAC, it's the movement of air. For plumbing, it's the movement of water or liquids. It doesn't, or airs. I mean, it could be air too for gases, for like a dental office. That's part of the plumbing scope of work. So the A plans will give you all of that, but that's that's all of those separate systems because those come kind of in between the A plans. So we the structural set also includes or the civil set, we have underground sewer systems, underground pipes, underground communications, underground whatever. All of those things will be in the civil set, except for the electrical. Okay, so when the electrician, his civil portion will always be in his plans. So you don't have, for the electrician, you won't ever have to look at the electrical set and the civil set. The electrical set always has his civil set, the outside stuff included in his set, but not so much for HVAC or plumbing. Okay, so
Yeah.
plumbing, if it's plumbing in a civil set, it stops at the building. And then the P plans are everything that's inside the building. So if we're talking about sewers, underground water, underground gas, all of that, all of that you're going to find only in the civil set. Once it hits the building, once it comes into the building, plumbing and HVAC, you find that in the individual plumbing plan and in the individual HVAC plan. But again, for electrical, their civil portion, whether it's residential or commercial, is in their whole electrical set. They don't have to go to the civil set. And it'll be referenced, their scope of work, the electrician's scope of work will be referenced in the civil set, but that's only for the plumber and for the HVAC person or for underground utilities or just to show how the pipes are running, but not for the electrician to use at all to do his estimate. Okay, so
Right.
see how all of those. So how the A plans fit in? Well, that's everything. Again, once we've done the box, once we've done the C plans, once we finish the S plans, now we have the A plan. Okay. So that's how they are related. Okay. So, it says the role of the A plans in estimating. Well, project planning and execution. Well, that's a part of the project. And when it comes to estimating and you're a GC or you have to present like a whole building worth of estimate, you have to do the cost for the whole building. That's something totally different where each one of those would be broken down separately. We'd have an estimate for the framing and the drywall. We'd have an estimate for the insulation. We'd have a separate estimate for the roofing because in terms of trades, those are totally different scopes of work. And we have to totally estimate them separately. Once we complete the estimate, we know how long each scope is going to take. And then from that point, we can start to produce a construction schedule and all of that stuff. So that is when it helps with the project planning and execution. But we got to know how to break that A plan up into its individual parts.
Mhm.
So, okay, you'll have for A plans, you'll have the drywall, framing, paint, insulation, roofing, depending on the ceiling, because the ACT, acoustical ceiling tile, if it's commercial, most drywall folks don't do that. So you have to have that one separately. All of your finishes, finished carpentry should be separate. Exterior finishes should be separate. You should know your exterior paint from your interior paint and break all of that down. All of that's in your A plan.
Okay.
So now let's look at the components of the A plan. So what are we looking at? We are looking at the plan. Okay. So let's go to when we have a set of plans. Okay. We always have the cover sheet. Okay. And the cover sheet is pretty much everything about the project. And they're usually boilerplate. Okay. So there may be some abbreviations in here that may not even be that are in the plans that may not even be on here. So just know it's a boilerplate kind of thing and they just fill it in as they need it. But the cover sheet gives you everything about the project. You can look at the cover sheet and the cover sheet gives you all of the scopes of work. So you can look at your cover sheet and determine right away if it's from the ground up or if it's existing. Because if it's from the ground up, you're going to have a civil set, you're going to have a structural set, because that means if it's from the ground up, that means there's no foundation, right? So if I have a structural set, if I'm looking at it, they send me a set of plans and I say, oh, okay, I don't have a structural set, but I have AD. That's, demolition. So I know straight away that this is probably existing and it's a demo, a refit, a rebuild, whatever they call them these days. But yeah, it is. So the cover sheets give you a lot of information about the plans because if you have to solicit different contractors, you won't need underground utility contractor because there is no underground utilities. Or you'll need, you know, all of the MEP, because they're here. By virtue of the plans being here, that's part of the project. So cover sheet tells you everything about the project. It tells you all the owner's information. Really, when you present a set of plans, it's a contract really between the owner and the GC or the firm that's acting as the GC. And so by law, you have to have certain things on here. You have to have the architect's information and all of the engineers, if there were any involved and if you have a mechanical, plumbing, and electrical set, there has to be an engineer involved in developing what everything should be for those technical sets. Okay, so their information is always going to be on the cover sheet somewhere. The project location is going to be there. The owner or the landlord, all of that is going to be there. The owner for this one is Ulta, and it gives all their contact information. Scope of work statement, all of the abbreviations. So, you should never be lost. But there are some standard abbreviations that you'll use all the time. And I sent you that PDF of those that, we see all the time and we should be familiar with. Now, the orientation of the all of the sheets, you'll find that the right band is always going to be oriented like this way, sideways, as opposed to everything else. And that is because if you have a active live real set of plans, you just want to be able to flip through this portion of it to find the page you need and be able to pull it out. So you don't want to have the page number in the middle where you got to look through a hundred of them, So the orientation of all the pages are the same. It'll give you the project name, got to have the direct, the physical address, because yes, all of our pricing, all of our labor, all of our everything is based on the physical location of the project. And so you always want to make sure that you are pricing it based on the physical location of where it's at. And to some GCs will say, oh, price it for 60 days out. Well, how are you supposed to know what drywall mud is going to be 60 days out? Your supplier's not going to tell you that. That's not part of the game, even though they want you to do that. So you've got a couple of choices. I just say you're supposed to price it for the date it's due. And then if you win, okay, you reprice it for the redo date, because they're always going to ask you to give them a new number, even if you helped them win with the number you gave them. And so, or you can just go ahead and add 25% or 30%, but then that tends to help make you overbid because somebody else may not be doing that. Okay, so how you do that. I mean, that's typical. You don't get a walkthrough, you just got to go by the plans. And when you're doing an estimate, that's exactly what you do. You go by the plans that you're given and the specifications, and you don't add stuff to it. And that's how you really get bare bones when it comes to doing your estimates. Because a lot of people, oh, I worked for them before and they did this, so I'm going to add $5,000 or something stupid. I'm like, yeah, well, you're not going to win because it doesn't work like that. You just do it based on what they give you. And that's what change orders are for. That's what contracts are for. You got to make sure you understand the provisions of a change order and how you're getting paid on the contract. And you don't have to jump through so many unnecessary hoops when you're doing an estimate. So, architectural set, the cover sheet, all of the sheets within the set, and so, everything with an A is the architectural. So it's everything that goes in and on the building once the building's constructed. Floor plan, ceiling plan, all of the wall types, okay, and everything. So we'll go through each of the pages as quick as we can. Okay, so that's the importance of the cover sheet. And another thing you're always going to look for if you're submitting an estimate, you always want to say somewhere on your estimate based on plans and specifications dated, whatever the last date for the plans that you've seen. Now, if there are addendums, then need to use the addendum date, even if the addendum doesn't apply to you. Okay, because they want to see that you looked at, because they don't know. I mean, they just know there's an addendum. So really needs to look at the addendum, whether it applies to you or not. And so that's what they're going to be looking for when you submit an estimate. Something to the effect of based on plans and specifications, dated, whatever there's always a net, whatever the date of the addendum you received. Otherwise, they may just throw it out. Oh, you didn't, it doesn't look like any reason. It doesn't look like you looked at all the plans or whatever. All right, so let's look through the architectural set. Now, every set is going to have this thing. It's division of work, but it's also called a responsibility schedule. Okay, and what it basically tells you is they'll break everything down, okay, for the full project. So you got to make sure you know what the divisions are because we're talking about specifications. Okay, when we say division 3, that's concrete. And sometimes they'll want you to price it based on exact division number. Okay, so you got to get really familiar with the specifications and especially with the A plans. Okay, the A plans, Division 9 are finishes. Okay, so finishes are everything. Okay, look what finishes are. The partition is a finish, the gypboard's a finish. Okay, the acoustical ceiling tile is a finish. Everything is a finish. And so if they ask you to price, and all of that's A plans. So if they ask you to price it based on Division 9 and all of these numbers, and we'll go over it. Like I said, there's a whole class in specifications, especially when it comes to the architectural set, because everything is different. So divisions are broken down, everything in construction is broken down to one or the other of a division. And so you got to be able to know when you are reading the specifications, for instance, acoustical ceiling tile or porcelain tile, everything about that material will be in the specifications. Everything where you got to order it from, the grout, thickness, everything. And so you have to be able to know if you're the tile person or you're the vinyl strip floor tile person, where do I go in the specifications to read about my scope of work so I make sure I do the job according to what the owner wants, I price it right, all of that stuff. Okay, so the architectural set, everything in the architectural set pretty much will be in the division 9 in finishes. Okay, but then again, if you're doing framing, okay, if we have uh metal framing, light metal framing, well then you got to look in division 5 because that's metals. If we're doing wood framing, blocking and all that millwork, which we do, you see we have it all part of the project, then you need to review the division 6, which is woods and plastic. So any kind of wood in the project is going to be in division 6, and the purpose of the specifications is telling you the means and methods of how you're going to do the scope of work. If they want to see a submittal, they may want to see a piece of tile that you're going to install, and all of that will be told to you the in the specifications. If we're doing the roofing, that's division 7, and so it's going to give us all the details about insulation, the roof material, the manufacturer, all of that stuff. Okay, so this division of work basically is also called a responsibility schedule. And okay, it will tell you, as we see up here, the description does not apply, exists to remain, landlord, furnish and install. Okay, so if you're an electrician, whatever, you need to be looking at this first because the owner or the landlord may be furnishing a whole lot of your material and that takes a big strain off of you. And so make sure you're always looking at the responsibility schedule so you'll know what portion of the material you'll be providing or they'll be providing, who's installing. And keep in mind when it says Ulta GC or the GC, that's the GC and his subs. Okay, so it's not that the GC's doing the work. Sometimes the GC will do the demo directly, but yeah, we know because the set of plans is a contract between the GC and the owner. It'll never say GC subs or whatever. So when you see that, that's the subs that all the GCs are going to try to hire. Okay, so for demolition work, the GC, which is, there'll be a sub to do all of the demo work, and site work doesn't apply here. And that's how you read that. So every responsibility schedule or in this time, they're calling this one a scope schedule, whatever. You want to look for that. Is the landlord furnishing or the owner furnishing or installing? Because you don't want to waste your time giving them an estimate for a whole bunch of stuff that you don't even have to worry about the material for, and that makes life a whole lot easier. Okay, so that's the division of work, also known as the responsibility schedule. And every time, everything about a project should be in the right band. So if you don't know what page you're on, it should be there. like I didn't know what page this was, but this is the vendor contact information and submittal requirements. And to this kind of stuff, you would find definitely in the specifications, and they put it here in the set of plans just to make your life easy. So because they know most people don't read the specifications. So, look through that also in good detail, where if they require a submittal, yes or no, or, and what's the submittal? A sample of whatever it is they're asking for. They'll ask you to submit it to them. And two, there are guidelines that apply to the receipt and transferring of submittals too. They're supposed to give you a certain amount of time to send them to them, and they're supposed to respond back to you if it's adequate within a certain amount of time. And if it's not, you have a certain amount of time to get back with the right thing. So there's a process to everything. So if any GC's just like flying by the seat of their pants, that's because they want to. And yeah, it takes a lot of organization to keep all of this in line, especially if you're in charge of everything. So let me ask you, let me stop right here. What do you do every day? Why are you taking this class?
I like design like the buildings and stuff
You
for
design
construction.
building?
Yeah, like through like a program like Act Dimensions and
Oh,
like blue
okay.
beam and measurements. Yeah, stuff like that.
Okay. So are you finding this part helpful for that?
Yeah, no,
Okay.
absolutely, and like estimating all that.
Okay, good, good, good. Well, we
Yeah,
got a long way to go. So
yeah,
that's good. All
yeah,
right. So details, it depends on what your scope of work is, how much you need to look at the details,
right.
and that's all this is. So let's go on to all the details about the bathroom, what it has to be, and mandatory checklist. Okay. We don't care about that. And at this point, in terms of estimating, looking at the plans, okay, so we got the site plan, kind of gives us an idea if there's something, there may be one or two things we got to do some handicap work or whatever. And I think that's just the egress plan to show you which way you exit from the building. So yeah, that's not anything. Yeah, existing site plan for reference only. So, when you got to go, actually travel to the site, okay, it's in between this one and this one, but they don't really tell you what they are. But yeah, so we know that our footprint for the Yolta is 5,943 square feet. So, that's helpful. And that's about all that does. All right. And then the egress plan to show you when those things are on the wall, which way you got to exit. But I don't know that that helps anybody with the estimate. But the fixture plan, okay. So let's talk about the different views, okay, because that's what's really important. And let's see, floor plan. Yeah, there we go. Elevation sections. Okay. So the first of the views is the most basic of the views. And that is what we call the plan view. So when you say send me the plans, that's just kind of generic term for construction documents because plan is a way that you are looking at the sheet. It's as if you're hovering over the building. They took the ceiling or roof off, and you're like hovering over it, looking down. And that's the plan view. So whether it's the floor plan, the fixture plan, the roof plan, the ceiling plan, all the plans, that's a particular way that you're looking at the sheet. And that's the most basic of the views. And so you got to think if I'm looking at now, let's look at the floor plan, which floor plan is just all of the new walls built from the floor up or from the ceiling down. Well, no, that's the ceiling plan. Let me not confuse you. So the floor plan shows me all the new walls built from the floor up. Okay, so this is the architectural set. So remember, it's everything that's in and on the building once the structural part has been already been constructed, but this is a renovation. And so what we probably did in the demo is just like gut the building, and now we are building all new walls around the perimeter of the building and some new walls in the back of the house, what they call the back of the house or whatever. And so plan view, most basic of the views, the view from above, whether it's the roof plan, the floor plan, the reflective ceiling plan, the electrical plan. Okay, so it's the most basic of the views. And so for a framer, the floor plan will help us measure how many linear feet of each type of wall. But we need to know the height of every wall because we're the framer. And so you need another view. You need another way of looking at the wall. So, and now you as a designer and building and putting together maybe sets of plans, the most crucial part in the architectural set is the section view of the walls. So the framer knows what's the height of the wall, and that is something like this symbol. Okay, so this is called a section view marker. Basically, what it does is, let me explain it. So the circle, the hat, and it's unique. So that's why I point out the pieces of it. So the circle, the hat, the leg, and the foot. It's a section view marker because the leg goes through a section of a wall. And the purpose of the going through the section is like the leg is a knife. Okay. Pretend the leg is a knife and I'm cutting the wall right there and I'm opening up the wall right there. And I'm standing where I cut and I'm facing in the direction of where the foot is pointing. So I'm facing to the right. Okay. So let's go look at, okay. So this is an existing column. Looks like a column, we're putting a column cover over the column, closing in the column basically. Okay. And so let's look at two. And so what the architect is saying, if you want to know the internal construction of this wall, I can measure from this. This is also a plan view of this column. So I can measure how many linear feet, but I need to know the height of that column. And the height of that column probably will be given to me when I look at image or picture number 2 on page A2.1. So let's see, or some portion of it. And then if it's not, then there's another way to do it. So let's go to 2.0, picture number 2. Oh, that's this one. So of course, picture number 2. Okay, not to scale. Beautiful. Okay, so what's this column cover? Yeah, yeah. And the 6 inches, that's 9 times out of 10, most of the walls are going to go 6 inch above the ceiling. Okay. And so what's the ceiling? Well, we've got to figure it out and see. Let's go over a couple symbols. Okay. So it's not to scale. If it was to scale, we could straight measure, but it's not. Okay, let's go over some symbols. You see that little, looks like heartbeat symbol? The heartbeat symbol basically says this is just a section of the wall just for demonstration. I basically cut out, so don't use this to actually measure the actual length because I'm just showing you what the bottom looks like, wall base number 1 at the bottom. There's some length, okay, that I cut out that is not for the purpose of what I'm showing you here. The purpose of this section view really is to show us what the wall base is made out of, that the walls on all sides are going to be painted P6, okay, and that we're going to have column trim where the ceiling meets the wall and the drywall is going to only go 6 inches, less than 6 because that's 6 inches, just an inch above the ceiling, which is ACT. Okay, so this does nothing to help us with the height of the wall. Okay, but let's go to another view, which may help us, which is the interior elevation views. Okay, so this is an interior elevation marker. And basically what the architect is saying, and this one is too, okay, but they're serving two different purposes, but the purpose of what they want you to look at is different. So this one right here, basically what this is saying is that if I look at image or picture 7C on page A6.2, I'm gonna it's as if I'm standing right here looking in the down direction and most probably just the existing vestibule. Okay, so If I'm looking at 7B, I'm looking to at this right wall because I'm looking in the direction that that arrow is pointing. They would normally put it inside right here, but it's so big they just said, okay, this is what it is for this area where I've tagged it right here. So what we're going to do, we're going to go to A 6.2 and look at all of those views. And that's an interior elevation view, meaning it's as if I'm really standing in the vestibule and I can see all four sides. Okay, so let's go to A 6.2. And I don't know that I've got 8.1. Let's go 6.3, 6.2. Okay, so the vestibule. Okay, so you see A, B, C, D. It's as if I'm now standing up in the vestibule, and this is to scale. Okay, and so good. I can pretty much determine, this may be where the ceiling is, but it's still not telling me. But interior elevation views show you the real life pretty much view at that point. So this is inside the vestibule, all four sides. And so say for instance, I'm the painter now. I can scale my plans 1/4 equals 1. And now I know if I'm the painter, I can say vestibule paint. And I can use elevation views now to say, okay, even if I just did one side and just assume they're all the same. Okay, so now I'm the painter and I know that, I'm going to do all of these actually. So I'll know how many square feet of paint for the vestibule. And then we have wall base number one everywhere but at the window, which makes sense. Okay. See, and so that's what an elevation view is for. If I'm the window person, then I can measure the height of the new windows they want, or I can determine this is T means tempered glass. So if I'm the window manufacturer, I can determine pretty much how many square feet of tempered glass I have to get for them for this vestibule area. And now I can see I'm the finished person, right? I got to do all the and this is some kind of probably some whatever. I don't know what that means, but it's probably in the explanation. And now I
Right.
know I have to put the Ulta stickers on the D section of the wall. Oh, D and B. I got to make sure I got the four stickers and I put them in the right place. Okay, so that's elevation views. It helps the finished trades. Okay, so the corridor now I know I have wall covering number 7. So I'm the finished person. I need to determine how many square feet of that do I have. And I can use this as well to determine how many linear feet of wall base. Okay. So that's an elevation view. But what it's not giving me is I'm going back to being the framer and I need to know the height of my walls. Okay. So unless it tells me somewhere, I need to find out what the height of my walls are. So let's see, we got to go through because there's a couple of ways we can do it. Let's see, do we have section views? And this is the enlarged salon plan. And oh, let's see. This looks like it's outside. Okay, okay. So this looks like it's outside, and we had, oh, wait, that's not helping. Oh, this one. Okay. So we have interior elevation views, which are the ones inside. But then we also have, in this case, exterior elevation views. And hopefully the exterior elevation view will show us it should show us from the bottom of the building all the way to the roof. And so maybe that'll assist us in determining how the length of the studs, because we're going to probably once we look at the schedule for the studs, we can determine whether they are just to the top of the ceiling or all the way to the roof rafters and braced to the roof rafters. So let's look at, I think we already did, didn't we? 6.2. I think that's what we looked at. Yeah, we did. Okay. So yeah, no. So let me just do this and see if it makes sense that that's the roof. Mm. So when we make our measurements, we always go up to the nearest even. So, I'd say 12, all the exterior walls, I would go 12 feet. I just say 14 because it doesn't show me very well, at all. So I would say exterior walls are 14 feet, but let's do it another way. So here's our floor plan, symbols on the floor plan. Now remember, everything on your plans, whether it's the floor plan, the mechanical plan, the HVAC, or whoever, whatever, everything on here is either doing one or two things, either telling you what something is or telling you to do something. So you got to be real clear on the floor plan. I need to know that if it's a exterior, if it's a wall, that it's pointed out as being a wall. Okay. And so this is the floor plan. This is the plan where it's going to tell me all about the new walls from the ground up. And so I'm going to assume I'm going to have wall tags all throughout the new building, and which I do. Okay. And so the wall schedule, we have B walls, and we see that this symbol is associated with the walls. And if we look on the cover sheet, you have the small basic symbols. And so, yeah, that's what they use to the sideways square. That's where they're using, that's the symbol they're using to tell me that these are walls, wall tags. And then the room tag, they're using that symbol. Revision, of course, is always a triangle. Doors, if it's a new door, it's even an existing door. Okay, it's in a circle. The number, all the doors are numbered. Okay, so if you have 1 million doors in a project, you're going to have a door schedule with 1 million doors from 1 to 1 million. Okay, and even if they're all the same door, so keep that in mind because they treat windows differently. If you have 1 million windows, they're just going to show you the A window, the B window, the C window, the D window, but there's no schedule of every window in the project. So, say for instance, you're doing a hotel and it's from the ground up. The window person has to be able to look at the exterior elevations and say, okay, and count how many windows they have because there is no full window schedule for a full project like there is a door schedule for a project. So all the doors have an individual number and are from one to whatever, all the doors. But the windows, no. It's window A, window B, window C, even if there's a zillion window A's. So make sure, you know that, yeah, I got to look at the exterior elevation and hopefully each window will have a tag on it, which it's supposed and I can use a counting tool to count how many of windows of each different kind. But we have and let's find it. We have probably with the wall types. Okay, no, it's not. We have a door schedule and a finish schedule. We have all the schedules. Okay, wall opening. I guess that's what they're calling it. Yeah, I think that's what they're. Yeah, that's what they're calling it. Wood cased wall opening detail. So these would be our all of our doors. And, we're always looking for what is the frame. And usually when I see aluminum frame, that's usually a storefront. And my contractors don't do the aluminum frames because that's a specialty storefront thing. But yeah, most of the commercial, okay, and make sure you have a good door schedule. See, they're trying to be too fancy in this project. Wood cased wall opening, just say door schedule. Okay. So, yeah, it tells you everything about the doors. And as you can see, there's a lot that are the same size, but they're still individually numbered. And that's how we find them on the plan. So, if I'm the framer, I'm framing the windows. I mean, I'm framing the walls and I'm also doing all of the door frames. And so I have to make sure I look at the framing for that and make sure I know if it's hollow metal, if we're doing wood framing. Hollow metal frames take a fraction of the time to install as opposed to wood framing. It's like hollow metal frames are zero point 0.9 of a man hour, where a wood frame is like 1.5 hours. So, it's a real big difference when you're doing the frames. So now we're back to we don't know the height of the wall for the framer because we don't have good section views for this project, but other ones we will, and then it'll be easy to tell. But that section view marker goes through the wall and it kind of gives us an idea of the height of that wall. So the other way, let's go to the reflective ceiling plan. Okay. So as the floor plan gives you all of the new walls from the floor up, the reflective ceiling plan will give you two things: all of the new ceiling finishes, and in commercial, it's drywall or it's ACT, pretty much. I mean, it may be, wood, but that's some like special kind of restaurant that have wood slats on the patio or something like that. But the majority of like Ultas, Walmarts, if they have a ceiling at all, it's ACT and drywall. And so the reflective ceiling plan, they call it that because it reflects or it shows you everything, every component on the ceiling. But it's meant for the ceiling finish only. Okay, so it'll show you where the lights are. I'm sure these are some kind of the electrical, the lights, the smoke detectors is showing us. It's showing us the supply grills. Okay, and it's only for the finish trade. So if I'm doing the ACT, which is, I think this is probably not even doing it new. Oh yeah, yes we are. So if I'm doing the ACT, then I know, okay, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 15 places where there's going to be a supply grill. And so I have to adapt that part of it to fit that supply grill. Okay, so the reflective ceiling plan is for ceiling finish people. It'll show everything on the ceiling, but only for the purpose of the ceiling finish. Now, the good thing about it also tells you the ceiling finish, which that's its job. Okay, the job of the reflective ceiling plan is to tell you the finish in each room and the height of that ceiling. Okay, so if you had to guess, once we look at the framing schedule, well, we know that the corridor is 9 feet AFF above finished floor, ceiling height at 9 feet AFF. And so the job of the reflective ceiling plan is to tell you every ceiling finish and the height of that ceiling. And so if you kind of like don't know what the height of the stud should be, well, it's got to go above the ceiling height. And if the uh, schedule doesn't help you, the framing schedule, the legend for the walls doesn't help you, then you know that will kind of help you. And third thing is most commercial ceilings are at least 10 feet, okay, except for exterior. The exterior is going to go the height of the ceiling, but interior, I mean, I don't think you could ever go wrong if you can't figure it out one way or another by saying the interior walls are probably 10 feet. I'm going to go 10 or 12 feet, okay, and you'll probably be okay. But when we have our next class, I'm going to have a different set of plans so I can show you specifically how a section view is supposed to look and work, and it does look and work the way it's supposed to.
Sweet.
So let's see what do floor plans. Okay, let's go back to the wall types. Okay, so we had various wall types, and that again, anything that goes in and on the building once the building's been constructed, that's all of the new walls, really. And so we know that our E wall, we had that E wall, and from the depiction here, if it doesn't tell us, you know, we know that it's metal studs because it tells us. But if it had a 3 and 5 and 7/8, 3 and 5/8, 5 and 7/8, we know that's metal. And we also know this is a distinction for metal as well. Okay, so metal studs, we know because if it was wood, it'd be a 2x4, 2x6. It'd be very specific. Okay, so we know that, yeah, we're dealing with metal because even if it didn't say metal studs, if you don't see 2 by something, you know it's metal. It's like, oh, that must be metal, even if you don't know, because
Okay.
it would definitely say 2 by something. And so when we're looking at the wall legend, so we had a lot of wall E, which was the exterior, because that's the exterior wall. And so it's going to really point out you use these section views, whether it's the roofer, the insulation, whoever, whatever, you use these section views to build your material quantities because it points out exactly everything that you need from the runners to how high up the drywall is going to go, the top and bottom runners and any of the, additional supports and stuff. You can use this really to determine your material quantities list. Because if you know how many of something, okay, for instance, power driven fastener 32 on center, 32 inches. Okay, how many times do I have to do that? I have to do it every 32 inches. Okay, so just get in the habit of turning feet into inches. Okay, so you can, yeah, I need the power driven fastener 15 times, 17 times, whatever. Okay, so if I have 1,000 linear feet of wall E, which I did that. I have 220, I round up. So I have 220 linear feet of wall E. So, and I have to place that power driven fastener on the bottom track every 32 inches. So I'm going to say 1,000 because that's the feet times 12. I got to turn it into inches. So that's what, 12,000 inches.
Mhm.
And then I divide by the placement, which is 32. So I know I got to do that power driven fastener at least 375 times if I'm doing it on the 32s. And so you do that with anything. Okay, on the eights, on the 12s, on the whatever. But make sure you, well, no, you won't do that because that's concrete. But yeah, that's what we have to do. No matter what it is, just get used to what we're putting the bridging bar at 4 inch vertically to be installed only on walls. Da, 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 da. Okay, so we know that how many linear feet of the bridging bar do we need? Well, we need as many linear feet as wall E that we have, and then we got to look and see, oh, is it on the millwork? Is part of wall E, does part of my wall E somewhere on here, is it going to have millwork? And yeah, see, millwork is all of this stuff. And so what you're going to do, you're going to measure how many linear feet, and don't go into here. It starts here and it ends there. And so now I know, okay, it's got to, what's it say, 4 feet above finished floor. So that's my bridging for all of that. You can slowly but surely put your material quantities list together by looking at all the section views. Okay, so I'm going to end this class with I'm going to close this out real quick. And I'm going to open up another one that has a really good uh, section view thingy that I've had here forever. And it says 2 something 23. Okay, what are we in? Almost 25. So that's how many projects and I never delete them. And it's like, but I'm like I'm crazy. It's like once I have a set of plans, I like to keep them because I teach from them. And it's like, yeah, you want to figure out how to do every Starbucks and whatever, all the different, well, I've got that too,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, okay. So here's a Popeyes Louisiana kitchen. A
Nice.
beautiful, beautiful example of section views, more than you need. Okay. And so here's the floor plan, and all the different colors are all the different types of walls. But, and I always like to say the section view is the architect telling you this section of wall is built this way. And then I give you another section view and show you this section of wall is built that way. That's the purpose of the section views, is because every wall is not built the same. And so if you're designing walls, okay, make sure you just fill them to the butt with section views, because if you do, there's no way the contractor can't put the wall together the way you're supposed to. Okay,
Right.
so let's just start over here. So this is a representation of a window, right? The little frame where it looks like glass or whatever. This is window A. And so section view 1 over A 426 is the architect saying, hey, if you want to know how the wall is built at window A, then I want you to look at image or picture number 1 on page A 426. And so that's what we'll do. And I always add section views. 426, picture number 1. All right. So classic, beautiful section views. Okay. So this is picture number 1. This is the wall at the window. So I'm the framer. Okay. I need exactly all of this because I need to buy studs. I don't want to all buy all 12-foot studs because I'm going to have to cut so many down because I have so many feet of wall under window. And so what I want to do is make sure I get studs that 4 feet. I got to cut a whole lot less because all of my wall under window is 2 feet 10 inches. And then here's my window. And even my window has a section view through it. And that's for the purpose of the caulking through the window and how the window and meets the tile. Okay. But we're just talking straight for a framer. So the framer knows the length of the wall under the window, knows that X's, X's, that means two bys, 2x4s, no metal. Okay, anytime you see the X, it's a 2x4, 2x6, 2 by something, wood framing. And so I know I have one bottom plate, two top plates, and then however many linear feet. So that's the job of the section view. See, these are all section views at different places. Okay, section view at the window, section view at the bathroom, in section view for an interior wall. And so this way, this is the parapet wall, the amount of wall above the roof framing. So, and I know that that doesn't get insulation because this represents insulation. I know the parapet wall is not insulated because I have very good section view. And the section view is also used for the roofer, for the roof plan. Because yeah, from the plan view, the view from above, the roofer can measure how many square feet or how many squares the roof is. But when we talk about, okay, what's the thickness of the membrane? We got the cant strips, we've got the ceiling. How far does that go up? That's why we need all of these. And then we get into detail views, which we'll talk about later. So we have plan view, the most basic of the views. Section view gets a little deeper. Think in terms of our framer now. Now we not only know how many linear feet of each wall, we can determine the height of the wall too. We can determine the drywall height. We don't have drywall all the way up as far as the stud. So, we want to make sure we have that. Now, this is the architectural set. So you will see references to everything related to the architectural set, but you won't see anything referenced to the structural set. What is the structural set on here? The foundation. What does it tell you? See foundation plan. It'll show you, yeah, this is the continuous footer. We'll give you a little more information about that, but you don't know anything about this concrete foundation or other than what you can measure because this is to scale. And also the tops of every window, right? Those are headers and beams. So you see that they're represented here. There's an X. We know that's a beam, and we know that that's 2x6. We know it's a 2x6 because the walls are 6 inch, and we know that that's a structural beam, but there's nothing on it telling you the size of it, other than we know it's wood. Why? Because above the windows, above the doors, all above, that's structural framing. We see the roof joists, but it doesn't tell us anything about the size of the joist or the placement of the roof joist. Because why? It's a structural component. But yeah, it tells us all about the roofing membrane because that's a finish. The can strips, the finish. All of that are finishes. And so, yeah, it tells us all the details about that. All right. So we're going to close this class here. I'm going to have all of the videos for each of the modules for you tonight so you can go forward, okay,
Perfect.
with everything else. And, you know, even if, but don't take any of the quizzes until we meet, you know, together with the class. Even if you have the time, even if it runs into 3 sessions, you know, let's do it, okay?
Absolutely. Okay. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Have a good evening, and I'll look for my emails, okay?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah, you got to go home. You got to go
I
home.
know. I know. I gotta get home.
Have a good evening, sweetie.
You
Talk
too.
to
Thank
you
you
soon.
so much.
All right. Bye bye.